It is our tradition at Beth Am, when we hit July, the rabbis breathe a sigh of relief because we invite members of the community to share words of Torah. And it is my pleasure to introduce our first speaker this summer, Barbara Illowsky, who's going to share some words of Torah tonight. And I have to say, I think that, so she's also representing 4 generations who are here tonight, right? Are all 4 generations here? Yeah. So we have at least 2 families of 4 generations in the community tonight. So Barbara is here with us, and you can introduce your family later.
Thank you, Rabbi. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you to the rabbis for inviting me to share some words with you about my recent trip to Israel. And many of my trip mates who are not from Beth Am are here. And just so that you welcome non-Beth Am members, I just want to point out Anna and Jeff Young, who belong to Sheradash, are over there. I see Patty and Mike Kriegel. I saw them. Where did they go to? Oh, they're way in the back. They're at Kolamet. Rick Taven was on the trip, and his wife Ann is here along, and he's from, here comes Beth David, the Beth David group, Margie and Howard Pomerantz, Cheryl and Eric Lewis in the back there, Michal, my roommate, and Strutin, and Michael, her husband, who was not my roommate, just Michal. Today's Parsha is Pinchas, with revenge on the Midianites, a census, how to divide inheritances, and requirements of burnt offerings. It's a tough one to relate to our trip. Our trip, with celebrations, fervor, the discovery of areas of Israel that were new to me, was nothing like Pinchas. We didn't do a single slaying among us, and not even one burnt offering. Fortunately, Rabbi Sarah suggested I uncouple my trip from Pinchas and simply tell my story. You are the beneficiaries of her wise advice. Like many of you, I have been to Israel several times, including living there for 6 months in college. So what made this Israel trip different from all other Israel trips? On all other Israel trips, I had not experienced Yom HaZikaron, Israel's Memorial Day, Yom Ha'atzmaut, Israel's Independence Day, and Saturday night protests that took place all across the country. I was moved by the services and the sanctity of Yom HaZikaron. No picnics, no big store sales, just solemn services and evening and day sirens to stop all traffic. During the evening Karaite service in Ashdod that I attended, most people there had lost family members in the various wars against Israel. There were about 50 photos of war heroes posted around the room. The service was solemn and respectful. The community mourned together. Immediately following Yom HaZikaron, Yom Ha'atzmaut, Israel Independence Day, celebrated Israel's 75th birthday. At night, some of us joined thousands and thousands of Israelis, young, old, secular, and ultra-Orthodox, in Tel Aviv for singing, dancing, and performances, all emceed by a drag queen. Whenever I'm in Israel, I'm in awe of how free the young children are, running around with a total joie de vivre. The next day, we gawked as military jets zoomed over our heads on the Tel Aviv beaches. And just a few days later, some of us were among the 200,000 plus participants in the protests in Tel Aviv. It was peaceful. We carried Israeli flags, and we discussed the issues calmly. But the main reason for this particular trip was that all of our group wanted to hike the Israel National Trail, known as Shvil Yisrael, or Hashvil. 17 of us were from the Bay Area, and 6 were from the rest of the US and Canada. Some of us knew many of the people, some of us knew 1 or 2, others knew none. We had all been to Israel before and had seen various historical sites and museums that trip showcase. Our trip was originally scheduled for March 2020, and then April 2021, April 2022, and finally, COVID postponed our trip until April 2023. The 680-mile trail goes from the north near the Lebanon and Syria through the country, ending in Eilat, Israel's southernmost point. This trip included 10 days of hiking Hashvil. We were inspired by a book by Aryeh Green, who, coincidentally, was confirmed here at Beth Am over 45 years ago. I lovingly called our group the geriatric group, as our ages ranged from 62 to 80. And the 80-year-old was an amazing hiker. We were only geriatric in chronological age, in my opinion, as we hiked over 100 often very hard miles in 9.5 days. So what made this trip different from all other trips? I posed that question to the other 22 hikers on our trip, and here are some of their replies using many of their own words. First, the answer that each respondent gave me started with the camaraderie. On all other trips, we typically go on a bus or walk, visit places, and get back on our bus. On this trip, we helped each other up and down steep trails and boulders, slippery gravel, and some scary climbing. Our daily interpersonal experiences, matched with our love for the land of Israel, heightened the trip enormously, as did the insightfulness of our tour guide, Segev Ben Shalom of Via Sabra. Another response was that on all other trips, we saw people, places, and things of interest in Israel. This trip showed us the land of Israel via experiences. There were days when we were the only hikers we saw. On other days, there were other Israeli backpackers doing our same hike, plus another 580 miles or so. On this trip, hiking in nature, we experienced and got a much better sense of how Israel's distinct ecosystems melded from one into the other, sometimes subtly. Israel's plants and animals are gloriously diverse. We also saw parts of the land that almost no visitors, and many Israelis, never get to see. We met and talked with a very diverse section of peoples who make Israel a fascinating place. These people included Ethiopians, including those who were airlifted to Israel as part of Operation Moses, relaying to us their escape and providing us with a delicious meal. It included learning from an Arab farmer on his farm in Abu Ghosh, and he and his wife providing us with a delicious meal. And it included an unusual visit with the Black Hebrews in Beersheba and their charismatic, semi-cult-like leader, and them providing us with a delicious meal. One of the fascinating discussions we had was with a trail angel. Trail angels live near Hashvil and open their homes to hikers. They provide a shower, meal, place to sleep, and receive no payment. Can you imagine letting strangers come into your home, sleeping nearby your children, and not expecting anything in return? They do this because we were once strangers in a strange land. We say that in many prayers and seders, but I don't know people who actually open their homes to strangers on a regular basis. That's the feel of Israel we experienced by hiking the land. On all other trips, when visiting different groups, we were often brought to their gift shops. At the Druze certified kosher caterer's home, we cooked with her. We learned how she, as a Druze woman, established her business, and how, as a result, her family eats only kosher fleshek meat in the home, so she can still cater for observant Israelis. And of course, we had a delicious meal at her home. And from the Bedouins we met, we now know how to track snakes. They wiggle when going uphill, and how the Israeli military employs Bedouins for their tracking ability. Of course, We enjoyed a delicious meal in the Bedouin village. The above are all reasons why this trip was different from all other trips. But I have one more experience that I never had in US or in Israel. Our Arab bus driver, Yihye, became a part of our family. He cared intensely for each one of us and knew all of our names. My husband and I even have an open invitation to stay with him and his family in Nazareth and to tour with them. This is the land of Israel. Trail angels feeding the stranger, Arabs inviting us to their homes, trails through hills and forests and the desert, and a group that is suddenly family. And I pointed out and invite you to meet some of my companions from our local synagogues who attended tonight and welcome them to Beth Am. Shabbat Shalom.